That goes down to my next question. Why is it now that it was so possible to have the election being jeopardized by this religious and tribal sentiments to such a degree? Is it that there weren't enough people to stand up for justification? Even those in position of power right now, is it that there are no people in position of power to the highest authority that stands for justice and justification in Nigeria? Is that the real problem of Nigeria? And is that just what became very clear as we saw during the 2023 election, and how it is also been the issue that has contributed to the mass immigration or emigration of Nigerians out of the country? Hello, welcome to the next episode, the third actually, of the series interviewing Barrister Augustine Ogbede Uchechi. And on this video, you are going to learn about the lack of justification issue that is so apparent in Nigeria. So I hope that you really stay tuned, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And thank you so much for your interest. I see that the views are going up. Please kindly recommend, like, comment. This helps the YouTube algorithm to recommend the video to more people so they can see this at a good time. I think this is the best timing for this. So please, thank you for helping out.
Those tribal sentiments, the person can be arrested. So it's as good as, passing a law on hate speech, whereby you say if anybody makes any comment that is hateful, that person can be prosecuted. I think the moment we start doing that, that's when we'll start, navigating ourselves towards the path of nation.
Is this something you've thought about before, or was it something that came to mind during the course of this conversation about specifically outlawing religious and tribal sentimental behaviors that are playing into political spaces and all of that?
Yeah, it's something that is very obvious. You don't even need to think about it, because you see, from what played out in the last election, you can see in Lagos State. So anybody that they see that doesn't look like a Yoruba person was not allowed to vote. Anybody, they don't care whether everybody was painted with the same brush of an Igbo man. Some people were from Edo State, some people were from Apaigo. So as long as you don't look like a Yoruba person, you are not allowed to vote. So if we allow this, heinous crime to perpetuate in Nigeria, we will not have a nation in the next 20 or 40 years.
Okay, so how are they allowing this thing to continue to be perpetuated? What do you think was the behavior of government that you would qualify as allowing these things to be perpetuated?
You see, when those things happened, you could see that the police was even aiding and abetting those behavioristic exhibitions. You could see a young man who threatened everybody, that in a particular polling booth, that if you are not voting APC or a particular political party, you should just go home. And the police was sighted at the perimeter area of where he was dishing out those threats, and the police could not even arrest him. So these things are...
Yeah, and that's really interesting. This is something serious. Somebody is actually threatening. And how did he even threaten? Was he also armed in one way or the other? And how was he allowed to go scot-free? What do you think are the reasons of why he was allowed to go scot-free?
You see, that's why we say, That's why we say everything that is happening in the country, blame it on the government, because if the government was not on the side of that young man, I don't think he would. If he knew that what he was committing was an alter, you know,
Can be convicted.
yeah, of course, if he knew that, you see, such nefarious statements, you cannot do them in a sense.
So are you saying that currently there is no way such a man could be convicted for what he did?
If we have a government, such a person.
No, what I'm asking specifically, there are no laws to convict such person.
There are.
So why, that's the question now. Why is it that there are laws in Nigeria, yet people still commit those crimes? They what's the word? They are very defiant of those laws with impunity, and nothing happens.
It's because what we have in Nigeria is selective justice system.
I mean, I don't get it. How is that even possible? How is that allowed? How is that possible?
It is allowed because we are still living, we are living in the era of justification with the spirit of authority. I
don't understand that.
What I mean is that we are practicing democracy. Remember, the military era was the era of, dictatorship, authority. Go here, you go there. Go there, you go. Sit down, that's command. They rule by decree.
No, now this situation was a tout coming in on an election day to dictate to people who are possibly bank managers, doctors, lawyers, to not vote. And with the presence of the armed personnel, which were the policemen, I believe they were policemen, or was there a way to even verify that they were legitimately policemen assigned to those polling units? And this man boldly spoke, even in front of the camera, knowing he was being recorded, did such thing and went unarrested right there before the police, right there before the camera, right there in front of people who were perhaps educated, responsible people who came out to vote. So men and women, how does such a crime, is it a crime? And what crime does this fall under? That's number one. And the next thing is, why was that possible for it to happen anyway? Even if such a crime.
You see.
What crime is that?
You see, that crime can be seen as an insurrection. It's an attack on democracy.
So it's not like there's a clear thing that the government has not clearly zoomed in on addressing this issue specifically, so that they can come up with...
The government cannot do anything.
So that they can come up with what you had said earlier, that these tribal and religious and sentimental behaviors that are opposing a free and fair election, of free and fair and corrupt-free processes. They need to be what's the word? They need to be criminalized, right? There has to be, what was the word you used?
Criminalized is
yes.
the better word. Yeah.
But what was the word you actually
used? I said outlawed.
Outlawed, exactly. So they need to be outlawed. I think that was very, very clear. That was a very beautiful way to look at it. Why is it because they have not been specifically outlawed, as in, because you can place it, yes, under this or under that. So they have not been dealt with all these years. And Nigeria went into a serious election in 2023 without outlawing these matters, even though we have been dealing with this for many years.
You see, Nigeria is a very funny country. There are laws in Nigeria, and these laws are made for people who are nobodies. They are made for people who don't have anybody to back them. That's why I was trying to explain something, that we are living in a democracy in the spirit of authority. that spirit of authority has pervaded the system right from time immemorial. You see, Nigeria is a place where there is inequality, and that schism of inequality is seen visibly in every strata, in every place. In Nigeria, you can make an unguided statement and go scot-free as long as you know somebody who knows somebody. But if you're a son of a nobody, you make that statement, you will, find yourself, in a big mess, in a big problem. So that those people who made those kind of statements, it's not as if they don't know that those things are, they can be
Punishable.
they can be
Punishable under
punished,
the law.
yes, by the law. So they know all those things, but there was something that was backing them up. So if you know somebody who knows somebody, so why wouldn't you go out in the national TV and make a threatening message and still go back home scot free? So that's what is happening. We are living in the era of justification, but yet with the spirit of authority, we can't even justify it, because if we have the spirit of justification in the in the era of justification, if somebody makes a threatening, remarks, that person will be, the authorities would arrest that person and take that person to court, and the court will justify whether what he said, he ought to say it or not. So the reason why nobody has arrested that young man who, dished out those threatening messages, the reason why nobody has arrested those people who threatened the people who are not voting the APC in the last election, in the last presidential election, and even the gubernatorial, is because, the spirit of justification has eluded us in the era of justification.
That goes down to my next question. Why is it now that it was so possible to have the election being jeopardized by this religious and tribal sentiments to such a degree? Is it that there weren't enough people to stand up for justification? Even those in position of power right now, is it that there are no people in position of power to the highest authority that stands for justice and justification in Nigeria? Is that the real problem of Nigeria? And is that just what became very clear as we saw during the 2023 election, and how it is also been the issue that has contributed to the mass immigration or emigration of Nigerians out of the country?
Well, I will tell you that our our political class is a very intelligent class.
What do you mean by?
They are very intelligent in that they know that an average Nigerian is very forgetful. An average Nigerian is very. We have. If you study the trajectory of Nigerians, you will discover that we tend to easily forget our past, and Nigerians are, very good at smiling and suffering. You see, you remember the time of the End SARS, movement.
Okay.
So you can see the spirit that was driving that movement as at that time, and everybody thought that this movement is going to yield something. Some changes in the system, and all of a sudden, the government of the day, attacked the people at the, Lekki toll gate and blasted the skulls of innocent Nigerians who were, peacefully agitating for a good, government. So after that, to your tent, O Israel, everybody ran home. And
it was even very interesting for me because watching the scenario play out, I was in Nigeria at the time. I also knew someone who was at that location, and I was watching her post, some of which she really wept a lot, that her friends, her close friends, were killed in that incident. But it was interesting for me to read up the publications the media was putting out, that lives were not actually lost in that. And up till today, we still don't have a clear picture about what really happened, especially for those of us who were only observing the situation through social media, who were not physically present there, or through what the media were putting up as facts in quotes, similar to what is playing out now in the just concluded 2023 election. So why do we have such a situation where people are bitterly, painfully deprived either of life or disenfranchised, one deeply, after they've made time and effort to put out their best in contribution for a functional society, a good future, to build their society, to be noble individuals in society. Why do these things, I don't know, keep happening? Why is it that we never get to see, the end, a justification